Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're diving back into our series dedicated to foods from TV and film with a shot at some Thai-style crab cakes inspired by the film Wedding Crashers.
Yes! Oh, wow! Yes! Crab cakes and football! Nice. That's what Maryland does! Little out of shape?
Alright, now, as we all just heard, the state of Maryland is well known for doing two things, which are crab cakes and football. A Maryland crab cake, of course, being iconically seasoned with Old Bay and Worcestershire sauce. For our version today, however, I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to explore the wonderful and interesting ways in which this very iconically American dish occurs in Asian cuisine, or more specifically, Thai food. This means that while our crab cakes will still fundamentally be the same thing, which is to say a cake made of crab meat, we're also going to be adding a few other elements to twist our crab cakes into a Southeast Asian dish, including a bit of shrimp as well as some Thai chili, cilantro, and fish sauce. Finally, rounding this all out, in lieu of the more typical tartar sauce that you might see served with a Maryland-style crab cake, we will instead be serving ours with some Thai sweet chili sauce for a sweet and savory finish. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so diving right in, we're kicking things off here first with the vegetable elements that will be supporting our crab cakes today. These are going to be folded into our crab meat before our cakes get fried up for some nice contrast in texture and umami. Up first is 4 cloves of crushed and minced garlic, followed by 1 inch or about 1 tablespoon of fine minced ginger going into my mixing bowl. Then next, this is 4 Thai chilies that I'm de-stemming and slicing thinly for a nice medium heat to our crab cakes. As with any time that we use Thai chilies though, dial this element up or down depending on your preference for heat. Next up is about half a cup of cilantro that I'm similarly de-stemming with a fork, keeping in mind that this is also an imperfect hack to de-stemming cilantro though, so we're still gonna have to sort through everything one more time to remove any errant stems that we might have missed as well. I'm setting a pinch or 2 of this aside for garnish later on, then taking the remainder and bunching it up as tightly as possible so that we may slice up our cilantro before adding it into our mixing bowl as well. Finally, rounding this all out should be 2 green onions, which as you can see here are extremely wilted, and I would absolutely recommend that you use fresh green onions for your own attempts. If you're like me and this is what you've got though, a green onion begins wilting from its leafy green first, so if you have to, you can simply remove the leafy end and the white portion will absolutely still be usable, like so. Next up, moving on to the main event, this is 1 pound or 16 ounces of crab lump meat. Now, lump meat comes from the body of the crab, meaning that it's going to be broken into smaller chunks of meat than that which you might find in claw meat, which of course comes from the claw. Since lump meat is already broken down into smaller bits, this is going to make it a little bit more ideal for crab cakes, although of course, either will do just fine because obviously it's all crab meat. Both of these are exorbitantly expensive though. These 2 cans of crab cost me over $30, which in fact might make this the most expensive video that we have ever done. So if you're in the market to make this a more affordable endeavor, then a filler ingredient is going to be really useful for you here. For our version today, I'm going to slip in about 8 ounces of frozen shrimp. These have been pre-peeled, deveined, and steamed for us already because, as we all know, I'm a sucker for shortcuts, and you'll never notice the difference for how we're using these shrimp today. If you're looking for it though, bop over to our honey walnut shrimp recipe for more on how to devein and peel a shrimp though. Moving on to our seasoning, now as I mentioned earlier, if you're more familiar with a Maryland-style crab cake, this is where you might see the addition of things like Dijon mustard, Old Bay, or of course, Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce. Anyway, for our Thai-style crab cakes though, we're gonna lean a little bit harder into the acids and umami of our flavor palette today, giving our finished dish a little bit more brightness to pair with those veggies that we added earlier. So up first is a single lime, which I'm slicing half of into quarters for a garnish, then taking the second half and juicing it into our mixing bowl through a fine mesh strainer to catch any errant seeds. Next up, as promised, rounding this all out, is 2 tablespoons of fish sauce for a bit of fermented umami, followed finally by half a cup of AP flour to help bind this all together. Then I'm mixing this all to combine and portioning our cakes into balls roughly the size of a racquetball? I don't know. A little smaller than a tennis ball, a little bit bigger than a golf ball. You get the point. If you really want to be exact, you can weigh out your filling and divide it by 12, which I did not do here because I got lazy. Next up, I'm setting up a wet-dry breading station here next. This is going to be a single egg in my first bowl, whisked up with a couple tablespoons of water to loosen things up, followed by half a cup of AP flour in my second bowl and half a cup of panko breadcrumb in my third bowl. Then I'm employing some wet hand, dry hand technique to help avoid the dreaded batter claw, using my left hand here to coat these balls in our flour first, then my right hand to coat them in the egg, and finally my left hand one more time for our panko breadcrumb finish. If you've done this right, this should more or less keep at least one of your hands free of batter, although if I'm being honest, I did mess this up pretty bad and had to rinse my hands off a bunch. Oh well. Over on the stove, I have my wok heating up at medium-high heat. Then I'm adding about half a cup of peanut oil here, and as always, long yao for that nice non-stick surface. We're going to be shallow frying today, so if you've got one, a round-bottomed wok like this one will serve you well here because it will take less oil to get things going as our oil gathers at the rounded bottom here. Otherwise, if not though, any skillet will work just fine. I'm adding my crab balls here to the wok 2 at a time, then using my spatula to flatten them out into pancakes like so. We're giving these 2 minutes per side until fried to golden brown, adding additional oil as needed and removing to a drying rack to cool once they're all fried up. Then finally, we're serving these up with a side of sweet chili sauce to dip in, followed by a squeeze of fresh lime juice and some of that reserved cilantro to garnish, and we're ready to eat. Alright, so I'll start by saying that I'm as much a fan of a Maryland-style crab cake as most folks are. They're crispy, briny, flaky, and everything that holds my heart in a small bite and shared plate dish at a restaurant. But holy f***, does this beat the pants off of literally every single other crab cake that I have ever had. Our Thai chili gives us a nice kick in the pants with some heat, complemented nicely by some wonderful aromatics from our garlic, ginger, and cilantro. Since these aromatic veggies are not properly fried or bloomed as we normally would do in a stir fry, they instead retain a good bit of rawness for a really wonderful texture to the center of our cake. And while I will absolutely acknowledge that minced shrimp is definitely a filler ingredient intended to help us stretch this $30 worth of crab meat that we're working with here, I actually think that it added a nice bit of fishy umami along with some slightly more toothsome bite as well, which also really rounds out the center of our crab cake nicely too. Finally, the last bit that I'll mention is that while I am particularly fond of a good tartar sauce, if you've never had a crab cake dipped in sweet chili sauce, you're truly missing out on one of life's greatest joys, which is great because did I mention that the price tag for these were higher than that of a New York strip steak dinner? Son of a bitch, these crab cakes were expensive. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. For those who are new to the channel, this one is part of a larger series that we've been doing that's dedicated to reproducing foods from TV and film, so definitely check out that series next if you haven't yet because there's a lot of these. For the Bay Area locals, the Woo Can Cook fried rice pop-up is back at 2 Pitchers in Oakland this weekend, so come by and say hi if you can. More about that at woocancook.com/eats. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, be nice interneters, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Did I get delivered here? Somebody tell me, please.